The Persian threat was over. Greece had stood victorious at Marathon, Salamis, and Plataea. From the ashes of war, Athens rose in glory. Its navy ruled the Aegean, its walls gleamed with marble temples, and its people crowned their city with philosophy, drama, and democracy. Under the leadership of Pericles, Athens shone like the jewel of the ancient world. But in the south, Sparta watched with suspicion. Sparta had no temples of splendor, no poets, no theaters. It was a city of warriors, disciplined and unyielding. Where Athens built an empire of allies bound by ships and silver, Sparta commanded an alliance of soldiers bound by iron and fear. The rivalry was inevitable. Two visions of Greece, Athens the sea power, Sparta the land power, stood on a collision course. The conflict began not in Athens or Sparta, but in their allies. Small quarrels in distant cities became sparks that ignited greater flames. Corinth, a proud naval city allied with Sparta, resented Athens' growing control of the seas. Megara, another Spartan ally, found itself strangled by Athenian trade restrictions. Every quarrel dragged Athens and Sparta closer to open war. And when Athens built its long walls, linking the city to its port at Piraeus, Sparta saw it as a fortress that could never be starved into surrender. Distrust turned into hatred. In 431 BC, the tension erupted. The Peloponnesian League, led by Sparta, marched into Athenian lands. Fields were burned, villages destroyed. Yet Athens did not break. Behind their walls, the Athenians relied on their navy to raid Spartan coasts and supply their people with grain from across the sea. The war was not one of a single battle, but of endurance. Athens believed its walls and ships would protect it. Sparta believed its armies would eventually starve Athens into submission. It was a war of two strategies, two ideologies, two ways of life. But even walls could not stop death. In 430 BC, a plague swept through Athens. Trapped within their crowded city, tens of thousands perished. Families collapsed. Entire neighborhoods were silenced. Pericles himself, the guiding hand of Athens, fell to the disease. Athens, once radiant, became a city of fear and mourning. The plague shook its confidence, but still the war raged on. After the plague, Athens staggered but did not fall. Its navy still ruled the seas, raiding the Peloponnesian coast, cutting Spartan supply lines and striking fear into their enemies. Sparta's hoplites, unchallenged on land, continued burning Attica year after year. Neither side could deliver a decisive blow. This stalemate dragged on for decades, wearing down both nations. Greece was bleeding itself dry. Into this weary war stepped Alcibiades, one of the most controversial figures in Greek history. Brilliant, charming, ambitious, and reckless, Alcibiades dreamed of expanding Athenian power far beyond Greece. His eyes turned westward, to Sicily. The great city of Syracuse, allied with Sparta, commanded wealth, fleets, and grain that could fuel an empire. If Athens conquered Sicily, Alcibiades argued, not even Sparta could resist them. The Athenians, hungry for victory after years of stalemate, agreed. They would send the largest expedition in their history across the sea. In 415 BC, an enormous fleet set sail. More than 130 triremes, 5,000 hoplites, and tens of thousands of crew and allies. It was Athens' greatest gamble. As the ships departed, the city cheered, believing destiny itself was on their side. But before the fleet even reached Sicily, disaster struck. Alcibiades, accused of sacrilege in Athens, was recalled to stand trial. Instead, he defected to Sparta, betraying his city and offering his talents to their enemies. Left without his leadership, the expedition faltered. In Sicily, the Athenians struggled. Syracuse, with Spartan aid, resisted fiercely. The Athenian fleet became trapped in the harbor. Supplies dwindled. Morale collapsed. When the Athenians finally attempted to break free, chaos erupted. Their ships were rammed and sunk. Thousands of soldiers were forced to retreat inland, only to be hunted down and slaughtered. The survivors, broken and starving, were thrown into quarries to die in misery. The Sicilian Expedition was a catastrophe. Athens had lost tens of thousands of men, nearly its entire fleet, and its aura of invincibility. The war was no longer about victory. It became a fight for survival. The disaster in Sicily left Athens crippled. Its fleets were gone, its coffers nearly empty, and its allies restless. For the first time, Sparta sensed victory within reach. But Sparta alone could not dominate the seas, so, in a twist of fate, they turned to their old enemy, Persia. The empire that once sought to enslave Greece now funded Sparta, supplying gold to build fleets capable of challenging Athens' naval supremacy. The balance of power shifted. Meanwhile, Alcibiades, ever the opportunist, abandoned Sparta and fled to Persia when suspicion grew against him. Then, in another dramatic turn, he sought reconciliation with Athens, promising to win Persian support for their side. Athens, desperate and fractured, accepted him back. His charisma revived Athenian hope, and for a time, the tides seemed to shift once more. Fleets rebuilt, victories were won at sea, and Athens clung to survival. The conflict spread across the Aegean. Battles raged from the Hellespont to the Ionian coast. Athens, even in its weakened state, showed resilience, defeating Spartan fleets at Cyzicus and other clashes. But each victory drained their strength further. Resources dwindled. The people, weary of endless war, grew restless. Inside Athens, democracy itself began to crumble. Factions tore the city apart. Oligarchs seeking Persian aid, democrats fighting to preserve freedom. In 411 BC, an oligarchic coup briefly seized control, creating turmoil at the very heart of the city. Though democracy was restored, the wounds ran deep. Athens was no longer united in purpose. By 407 BC, Sparta, guided by the brilliant commander Lysander and backed by Persian gold, built a navy strong enough to rival Athens. Slowly, piece by piece, the empire Athens had forged began to collapse. Allies defected, tribute dried up. The war, once fought for dominance, was now about survival, and the final blow was looming on the horizon. By 406 BC, Athens was battered but unbroken. Its people clung to hope, rebuilding fleets again and again, refusing to surrender. Yet each victory came at a higher cost. Supplies ran low, silver drained from the treasury, and food grew scarce within the long walls. Sparta, meanwhile, sharpened its edge with Persian gold and the cunning leadership of Lysander. They constructed a fleet capable of challenging Athens at sea. The balance had shifted. In 405 BC, the two fleets met at Aegospotami, on the Hellespont. The Athenians, exhausted and overconfident, anchored on the shore day after day. Lysander waited patiently. Then came his strike. Catching the Athenians unprepared, the Spartan fleet swooped in. Nearly the entire Athenian navy, hundreds of ships, was captured or destroyed in a single blow. Athens, once mistress of the seas, was left defenseless. With no ships and no allies left, Athens was surrounded. Spartan armies cut off the land, Spartan fleets cut off the sea. Inside the long walls, famine spread. Once proud citizens starved, children wept in silence, and hope withered. At last, after 27 years of war, Athens surrendered. The terms were harsh. The long walls were torn down, its fleet reduced to a handful of ships, and its empire dismantled. Sparta, the iron city of warriors, now stood as the dominant power in Greece. But victory carried no glory. Greece was left shattered, its strength drained, its unity destroyed. The dream of a united Hellas died with Athens' fall. The Peloponnesian War was more than a struggle of two cities. It was the death of the golden age of Greece. Philosophy, art, and democracy had flourished in Athens, but war consumed them. In the ashes, a lesson was carved. Greatness built on rivalry and pride can crumble from within. And though Sparta triumphed, it too would fade, leaving Greece vulnerable to new powers rising on the horizon.